Welcome to BookView TV. I'm Dennis Campbell. Now, each week we discuss the craft of writing with an author in any one of a number of categories. Our guest this week is someone whose work I have long admired. Dr. Reza Aslan is the author of the book No God But God, The Origins, Evolution, and Future of Islam, perhaps one of the most influential texts of the last decade. Beyond Fundamentalism, Confronting Religious Extremism in a Globalized Age, and his current New York Times bestseller, of which we'll spend a lot of time discussing this evening, Zealot, The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth. Now, Dr. Aslan was born in Iran, and he emigrated to the USA during the revolution in the early 1980s. He lives with his wife and their twin sons in Los Angeles, California. He's the founder of Aslan Media, an online journal for news and entertainment about the Middle East and the world. And he's co-founder and creative officer of BoomGen Studios, the premier entertainment brand for creative content from and about the greater Middle East. And he's also associate professor of creative writing and a member of the cooperative faculty in the Department of Religion at the University of California in Riverside. Dr. Aslan, welcome to BookView TV.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there's so much I want to talk about with you today, and I really want to start with what was perhaps your most famous interview on Fox News Network, where in an epic takedown of alleged thinking, the host could not fathom how someone raised in the Muslim faith could possibly write about Jesus of Nazareth as an historical figure.
Well, this is an interesting book. Now, I want to clarify, you're a Muslim, so why did you write a book about the founder of Christianity?
Well, to be clear, I am a scholar of religions with 4 degrees, including one in the New Testament and fluency in Biblical Greek, who has been studying the origins of Christianity for 2 decades, who also just happens to be a Muslim. So it's not that I'm just some Muslim writing about Jesus. I am an expert with a PhD in the history of religions. But I have been obsessed with Jesus.
It still begs the question, why would you be interested in the founder of Christianity?
Because it's my job as an academic. I am a professor of religion, including the New Testament. That's what I do for a living, actually. So, I mean, it would be like asking a Christian why they would write a book about, Islam. I'm not sure about that. But honestly, I've been obsessed with Jesus for really 20 years. I've been studying his life and his work and the origins of Christianity both in an academic environment and in a personal level for about 2 decades. And just to be clear, this is not some attack on Christianity. My mother is a Christian. My wife is a Christian. My brother-in-law is an evangelical pastor. Anyone who thinks that this book is an attack on Christianity has not read it yet. And to be clear, I just want to emphasize this one more time. I am a historian. I am a PhD in the history of religions. This isn't a Muslim opinion. This is an academic work of history, not about the Christ or about Christianity for that matter. It's about a historical man who walked the earth 2,000 years ago in a land that the Romans called Palestine. So again, I mean, I know that we've mentioned this 3 times now. I'm not sure what my faith happens to do with my 20 years of academic study of the New Testament.
I'm just trying to bring out what some others are claiming at this point, and I want you to answer to those claims, which is...
Well, it's pretty clear that there are those who actually do not like the book, who are, unhappy with its general arguments. That's perfectly fine. I'm more than willing to talk about the arguments of the book itself, but I do think it's perhaps a little bit strange that rather than debating the arguments of the book, we are debating the right of the scholar to actually write it.
Now, Dr. Aslan, that clearly was not a fair fight, taking on someone that unarmed. How many times do you find yourself in basically a dogmatic balancing act when discussing your book?
Well, look, my entire career is built around writing about religion and politics, and I understand that those are 2 very emotional topics that people take very, very seriously. So I'm used to these kinds of emotional responses, and I don't feel bad about them at all. As a matter of fact, I completely understand where someone like Lauren Green is coming from. As you know, and as readers of the book know, I used to be a fundamentalist Christian myself, and I remember what it felt like when someone, particularly someone carrying a scholarly pedigree, questioned some of the most basic elements of my faith. So I have an enormous amount of sympathy and understanding for that viewpoint. But as I try to remind people as often as I can, this is not a book about Christianity because Jesus was not a Christian. Jesus was a Jew. And this is a book about Judaism. And I think that that's really the dividing line between the Christ of faith and the Jesus of history. The Jesus of history is a Jew preaching Judaism to other Jews.
Well, how much does the seeming blind faith, I mean, you talked about yourself being fundamentalist Christian yourself at one point in time in your life. How much of that leads to actual factual ignorance? I mean, what would happen to people if they actually confronted inconsistencies in the dogma and the teachings and they questioned their own faith?
Well, first of all, that's true of every person of faith, regardless of what their faith background is. As a teacher of religions, I can tell you firsthand that when I teach Islam, my Muslim students are my worst students. When I teach Christianity, my Christian students are my worst students. Because, of course, being raised in a particular faith tradition makes you think that you know about that faith tradition. And so it's quite shocking to me how often that is the case. So there's nothing unique about Christianity. But to the larger point that you make, which I think is a very, very good one, is that there's this conception, I think, that faith and history are somewhat contradictory, that they conflict with each other. And I don't see why that has to be the case at all. I mean, the historian and the person of faith are asking two completely different questions. The person of faith is interested in what is possible. The historian is interested in what is likely. And while those two things may be different, they don't necessarily have to be so. I don't think that a historian account of the Jesus of history has to, in any way, shape, or form, rock a person's faith, even if it does perhaps overturn some basic tenets of that faith. You can do one of two things. You can either reconcile history and your faith by changing the things that you believe to make it more in alignment with historical accuracy, or you can simply accept both. That, history says it is likely that, for instance, Jesus was born in Nazareth, but faith says that it's possible that he was born in Bethlehem. There's no reason why those things have to be in conflict.
I have to go back and talk a little bit about the title of your book, because when you hear the word zealot, it's a definition that probably has many thinking you were being pejorative or insulting with the actual title, but it's actually the name of a tribe of people from that time in that land. And you talk about that in the book. Share a bit about the meaning of that word and how it was perhaps being twisted by those who sought to discredit you.
Well, look, there's no question that the word zealot has some fairly negative connotations in our modern parlance. It's a provocative term, and frankly, that's why we chose it as a title for the book, to bring attention, to catch your attention at the very least. But of course, the word did not have those negative connotations in Jesus' time. On the contrary, most Jews, in fact, I would say almost all Jews in Jesus' time, would have proudly referred to themselves as zealous for the Lord. Zealotry is a widespread biblical phenomenon. In fact, the term itself comes from the Bible. What it means to be zealous for the Lord in Jesus' time was pretty basic. It means that you had an uncompromising commitment to the sole sovereignty of God, that you refused to serve any other master except God. And, the very concept of zealotry can be found within the Hebrew Scriptures itself. So Jesus certainly would not have been the only person who could be labeled as a zealot in his time. Now, I should say that zealotry itself, like any biblical doctrine, played itself out in multiple ways. There were zealots who used extreme acts of violence against Rome and against the Jewish elite. Jesus was not one of those people. And there were zealots who divorced themselves completely from society and went off and lived, in these kind of monastic orders. And Jesus was not one of those people. There were zealots who refused to acknowledge the Roman occupation and who railed against the priestly aristocracy, which had essentially married itself to Rome. And that was the group that Jesus most clearly fit into. So zealotry is less about action than it is about ideology and sentiment. And there is no question that the same sentiment of zealotry that was so widespread in Jesus' time was one that can be found in his teachings.
Now, when we come back on Bookview TV for part 2 with Dr. Reza Aslan, author of the book Zealot, The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth, we'll talk more about the seeming dichotomy of religions and how what they teach versus how they act can often be at odds. All this when Bookview TV continues. Stay right here.